A man lies down because a bone has been pointed at him. No spear has pierced him. No club has struck him. But around him, people already understand the sentence. In some Aboriginal Australian traditions recorded by ethnographers, that was the terrible logic. Once the curse was known, the body could begin to follow the verdict. The victim might stop eating, stop drinking, withdraw from the camp, and fade as if death had been planted in advance. By the early 20th century, settlers and anthropologists were trying to describe this practice, usually imperfectly, and often through the haze of colonial misunderstanding. In 1904, A.W. Howitt catalogued several versions of what outsiders called bone pointing. Sharpened bones directed at a victim, heated objects, charms made from hair and human fat, and rituals meant to ensure the condemned person knew exactly what had been done. The object itself was only part of the machinery. The other part was social certainty. If a whole community accepted that death had been set in motion, the victim entered a world in which appetite, sleep, hope, and protection could suddenly collapse together. That is why the story later drew the attention of medicine. In 1942, the physiologist Walter B. Cannon published an article with the blunt old label Voodoo Death. His argument was not that sorcery had slipped into a laboratory. It was that terror could become physiological. Cannon gathered cases from several cultures, including Australia, and proposed that extreme fear, combined with isolation and refusal of food and water, might push the body into fatal shock. In one of his most striking Australian examples, a man at Mona Mona Mission in North Queensland believed he had been bone-pointed. He grew weak, looked close to death, and confounded observers because no obvious disease explained the collapse. Then the accused sorcerer announced there had been a mistake. According to the report, the man recovered quickly. It is the kind of anecdote that sounds supernatural until you notice what changed. Not the body first, but the meaning wrapped around it. Later, observers found similar patterns without treating them as occult proof. A 1977 medical case in Australia described severe anxiety after a reputed magical attack, along with refusal to eat or drink. The patient was not pierced by a hidden force. He was overwhelmed by expectation, dread, and the conviction that a fatal process had already begun. That is where the strongest modern reading becomes more interesting than the old mockery. Western medicine once dismissed curses as primitive fantasy, then spent decades describing stress hormones, vascular collapse, arrhythmia, panic, and the chemistry of surrender. Esther Sternberg, revisiting Cannon in 2002, argued that neuroscience did not erase the phenomenon. It gave it a colder vocabulary, but the colder vocabulary did not settle the case. Critics, including Harry Eastwell in the early 1980s, argued that many supposed curse deaths did not require a mysterious mechanism at all. Terror can stop a person from eating. Social abandonment can remove care. Heat and dehydration can finish what fear begins. Pre-existing illness can hide inside a dramatic story and make the ending look stranger than it is. Even Cannon's famous term carries its own distortion, importing a non-Australian religious label into Aboriginal contexts and flattening distinct traditions into one exotic category. The real issue is not whether Western medicine should believe in magic. It is whether medicine can admit that belief, status, kinship, and physiology are sometimes impossible to pull apart. That ambiguity is what kept the phenomenon alive in public memory. Bone pointing sits in the same uneasy family as taboo deaths described in Maori contexts and, in modern language, the nocebo effect. Expectation harming the body instead of healing it. Different cultures gave the danger different names. The pattern is what matters. A person is told that death is coming. Their world agrees. Fear strips away appetite, rhythm, and resistance. Whether we call that sorcery, psychophysiology, or the social dispatch of the dying, the result can look the same from the bedside. The eerie part was never a magic bone acting alone. It was the possibility that a human body, under the full pressure of terror and collective belief, might obey a sentence spoken before any wound appears. If you liked what you watched, please like and subscribe. We post interesting and crazy stories from throughout history every Wednesday and Saturday. Yesterday's craziness? Because yesterday was crazy too.